Good morning and welcome to lecture number 12. So last class we were discussing about cache memory and we saw certain ways by which you could improve the memory performance given that there is a cache between the RAM and the CPU that is located on the so there is a cache that sits between the memory and the processor, memory and the CPU. The performance, the memory performance actually improves quite significantly. So in today's class, we will deal about more on memory management and I will be introducing a concept called segmentation. So what is segmentation, why it is needed, what actually motivated the hardware architects to introduce a concept called segmentation. We will go into that in detail in the next two classes including this class. Okay. So number one, suppose when I compile a program, do we really care? So these are the questions. Do we really care for these parameters? Size of the RAM, where it is stored in the RAM, where the program will be stored when it is executed, where will the data be stored, we really do not know. When we actually write a program, we compile it, till we execute it, we really do not know what would be the size of the RAM on the machine in which we will execute this program, and in that RAM, where will the program be loaded. We also know we don't know where the data which this program uses will be stored. Without knowing all these things, the compiler has to compile the program such that when it is loaded on any machine with any size RAM, wherever you can load it at any location in the memory and finally it has to work correctly. I repeat, the compiler has the responsibility of compiling the program into machine code such that this program should run on any machine irrespective of the size of RAM that the machine has, and wherever it is loaded inside the RAM, it can be loaded at 1000, it can be loaded at 10,000, it can be loaded at 20,000, any address it can be loaded. So the compiler does not know where it will be loaded, and also the compiler does not know where the data will be stored. Without knowing all these things, the compiler has to compile the program so that finally this program will run correctly on the machine. So this is actually the challenge that is posed to both the compiler designers and the hardware architects. The hardware architects actually solve this problem through a methodology called segmentation, which we will be now introducing in today's class. Segmentation essentially means when you take a program, the program has several segments. The program can be viewed in several parts, at least 3 parts. What are these parts? These are some distinct characteristics of the program. For example, a program has instruction or what we call as code. Number two, the program has something called data on which this instruction will act upon. Then the program will have what we call as a stack. What is a stack? Let me explain you what a stack is and how is it relevant to a program. I hope all of you have done some basic course in programming. So let us see this. I have a function main which basically calls another function A. Let me say some void, which again calls another function B. So when B finishes execution, first main starts executing, followed by A. So main calls A. After that A calls B. After B, then who finishes execution first? B finishes execution first. Then the control comes back to A and it starts executing from the point where it left. It completes and then the control comes back to main and it starts from the point where it left. So this is how functions are executed in a traditional programming language. I am giving you an example from C, very close to C, but this is the case with any programming language. Now, when you look at this carefully, the function that was called last finishes first. For example, main was called the first, it called A, it called B. Now who finished first? B finished first, then followed by A, then followed by main. So this particular policy is nothing but last in, first out policy. The last in, first out policy is what the stack also follows. This is the property of a stack. So traditional programming languages follow the last in, first out policy when it comes to calling functions and returning from the functions. So that is why a stack is basically used to control this calling procedure or calling methodology. So if you look at a program, essentially you have three aspects of that program or three parts of that program. You will see a code, you will see data, and you will see stack. If you don't know what a stack is from a data structure point of view, I suggest that you quickly look at Wikipedia. There are very nice tutorials on stack. And I also take this opportunity to introduce you to one very important book that any computer science and engineer student should read. This is a book on Introduction to Algorithms. By Corman, Leesers and Rivest. There are a bunch of authors, but this is the book. Please note this down and start reading this book, and this has a very nice definition for stack. Okay. Now when we look at programming languages, where do you find data? The data is actually determined by the compiler when it looks at variable declaration. For example, I have a program main which has int ij, float say k, immediately the compiler knows that this program needs space for two integers, say namely ij, then another integer say k, another real number or floating point number k. So it immediately allocates space for this data, correct? Now suppose I have say int star a. So what is int star a? It is a pointer to an integer array. Now what is the amount of data that we require for this array A? That is known only when we start executing the program. It is not known at the time of compilation. Giving it a technical touch, it is not known. This particular space that is required by this declaration cannot be determined statically. Statically means when the program is getting compiled. This data, the amount of data which this particular declaration will eventually demand will be known at the time of execution. Typically what happens? So the languages do something called malloc, which is called memory allocation, and this memory is allocated only when the program is executing, and so this is actually called as dynamic memory allocation. So how much space program will require, how much space the program will require for storing data will not be known in advance, and will not be known in advance means that it will not be known at the time of compilation, but it will be known at the time of execution, and so that allocation of memory, that is why it is termed as dynamic memory allocation. So this data we can say as this is static data, and I may have dynamic data. Right? So now when we look at the program, now we have four parts. It has some instructions, it has some static data, it will need some dynamic data, and then it has a stack, right? So when the compiler starts compiling or translating this program into a machine language program, suppose I go and say j equal to I plus 5 in this program. When the compiler is compiling this program, it should know where I is stored. Then it should also know where j is stored. Then only it can get the value of I, add 5 to it and store it in j. So, but what we have discussed so far is that the compiler has no way by which it can know ultimately where this I and j, which location this I and j will be allocated in the memory at the time of execution. So how is it going to compile? So when it translates this program into machine language, it should know the exact address, it should know the address from which I should be fetched, and it should know the address where the result should be stored for j. And that is the problem that segmentation will solve for the compiler. So the compiler just assumes, that the data that is required by this program is stored at 0 address. That is, in your RAM, in your random access memory, there are addresses starting from 0 onwards. The compiler assumes that your data is stored starting at 0. So what it will assume here is that I is stored in 0th location, J is stored in the first location, and K is stored in the second location. The moment it compiles, it know that it will assume that I is stored at 0th location, J is stored at location 1, K is stored at location 2. Now when it is compiling the program, what it should say, J equal to I plus 5, it should say, for example, move from location 0 to the register AX the value, and add the content of AX with 5 and move the content of AX to location 1. This is how the program will compile. So it says move 0 to AX means the register AX will have the value of I. Now what happens in this add? I becomes I plus 5. That is, and this I plus 5 is still stored in AX, because I am adding the content of AX with 5 and storing it back in AX. Now this value of I plus 5 is now moved to location 1, which is J. You are getting the point? So this is how this program gets compiled. And the most important assumption is that all the data necessary for this program is basically stored starting at 0. That is what the compiler assumes. Now, in reality, when this program is basically compiled, so if you look at traditionally compiled program, it will have 3 parts, namely the code, the data, static and stack. So all these data are basically static data. Now each, in computer organization terminology, each is called a segment of your program. So you have a code segment, you have a static data segment, you have a stack segment. So when you look at your program, you will have 3 distinct parts. When you look at your machine program, machine language program, that is the program that is translated by the compiler, you can actually see some 3 segments. One is the code, which says J equal, this is the code. As you see, this is the code. This will be in the code segment. Then there will be a data segment wherein you are going to allocate this memory. Nothing will be stored there, but this allocation will be there. And then there will be a stack segment. Okay. Now, now what happens when the program is actually executed? Let me give you before we go into that, I will give you a small example. Suppose let us say all of us are using the Gmail service. Right? Now let us also assume that when you log in, there is a program that is executing on your behalf. When your friend logs in, again there is a program that is executing on his behalf. Your program will show your data, namely your mailbox. His program will show his data, namely his mailbox. Now, where will this mailbox be loaded? Where will the program be loaded? Where will your program be loaded? That is, where will your code segment will be loaded, and where will your data be loaded? Where will your mailbox be loaded? If we say that it should be fixed, then I say that your mailbox will be always loaded at 1000 and your code will always be loaded at say 5000. Then if that location 1000 or 5000 is not free, then you can never load your program. So what happens is, when you are trying to load your program and execute, the operating system will basically find out where the memory is available. Depending on the availability of the memory, the operating system will basically say, okay, take this memory and start executing. So when the program starts executing, the operating system will find out in the RAM where there is vacant space, and then it will allocate space for your data, space for your code, and space for your stack. So let me say, when this program is loaded, when this program that we have seen is loaded, let me say that there was space available at say 500 and there was some space available at say some 1000 and then some space at say 1500. So these were the space available when the program was loaded. So this part of the story, namely the code, will be loaded here, and your data, space for the data, namely I, J, K, will be allocated in the space. So in other words, the code segment is loaded at 500 and your data segment is loaded at 1000. Now, what the basic architecture does is that whenever it is, so this address 500 and 1000 are called the base address of the respective segment. So this is called the base address for the code segment. This is the base address of the data segment. So the base address of the code segment is 500. The base address of the data segment is 1000. So what the architecture does is, whenever we try to execute say move 0AX, whatever address is given in the program that was earlier generated by the compiler, that will be added to the base address of the data segment. For example, if I say move 0AX, this 0 gets added to this 1000, so this effectively becomes move 1000, AX, because that 0 always gets added to the base address of the data segment. So then what effectively now you are moving? You are moving the value of I into AX. Next you say add AX 5. So that I that you have moved to AX get incremented by 5, and then what you do? You say move AX, 1, and what is this 1? again this 1 gets added to this 1000 and that is 1001, and as you see J is stored at 1001. So the program which was statically compiled by the compiler generated certain address, and that program without any modification is loaded into the memory but by making every memory access the address that the memory access use, that address is getting added to a base value of the segment. By just enabling that mechanism in the hardware, I am able to execute that program correctly. So when we execute move 0AX, add AX5, move AX1, exactly this J equal to I plus 5 gets executed here. Now this is one time of execution. So the next time when we try to execute the program, so let us say you log out of Gmail, again you log into Gmail. The next time you are trying to execute the program, let us say that the empty space now was at say some 700. Now your base of the data segment essentially is now 700. Now when you execute, again when I execute move 0 comma AX, it will be move 700 comma AX, 700 plus 0 is 700, move 700 comma AX. So again I will get moved to AX, I will get incremented by 5. Then the answer of that will be stored at 1, which is 701, which is J. So because of this segmentation, because of the fact that every time I try to access memory, I add a base address of the segment, the architecture automatically adds a base address to the address that was generated by the compiler. And so in sum up, because of segmentation, I am able to load data anywhere in the memory, I am able to load code anywhere in the memory, and I am able to execute the program correctly. Most importantly, the compiler need not know where the data will be stored at the time of compilation. It can just assume that it is stored at 0 and every time, and it can do the compiler. It will be executed in a segment, it will be stored in a, data will be stored in a segment that is starting at 0 as we have seen in this code, and it can compile the program, and then when it gets executing, it gets executed. The architecture will take care of a seamless execution, correct execution of the program, irrespective of where the data will be loaded or where the code will be loaded. So in some, if you just look at it a little more deeply, we are doing what we call as a position independent compilation. I am not bothered about the position where your data will be loaded or your code will be loaded. So this is one aspect of segmentation. So the current day CPUs that you see, the current day operating system you see, they are not single task operating system. Single task in the sense, the old DOS actually allows only one program to execute at the point of time. But today multiple programs can be executed at any point of time. Correct? For example, when you are actually browsing, you also do some programming. So you have a C compiler that is executing that development environment, you have multiple windows, right? So when you work either on a Linux system or a Windows system, you actually have multiple windows. Each window is a program in execution. So you have multiple programs that are basically executing at any point of time. So what happens is that in the memory RAM, let us say there are two programs P1 and P2, each will have its code, data and stack. So P1 has its own code, data and stack segments, P2 has its own code, data and stack. So P1 will be allocated here. So let me say C1 is loaded here, some D1 is loaded here, S1 is loaded here. Let me say C2 is loaded here, D2 is loaded here, and S2 is loaded here. So these two programs, so this is one segment, this is another code segment, this is another. Both of this program are executing, but I have only one CPU. So how does these two program execute? So they do in a round robin fashion. So what will the operating system do? It will give some time for P1 to execute, then it will put P1, then it will put it in P2, again P2 will execute for some time, then P2 will be pulled out, again P1 will be executed, and so on and so forth. So when you work on two windows, you see that both the windows are responding, but you have only one CPU underneath. So how is it possible? So the operating system does something like what we call as a round robin scheduling, where sometime it will give for P1, so it will show some progress, it will pull out and then give some time for P2, so it will show some progress, and then it will just keep alternating between them. So the CPU has three registers. In this case, a code segment register, there is a data segment register, and there is a stack segment register. So let me also give some, this is 500, 650, 720, 800, 900, 1000. So when P1 is executed, CS will store 500, DS will store 720, and yes, stack segment will store 900. Basically they are pointing to this. So let me say this is P1, this program is P1. So when I say move 0, AX, I have to take from 720 and store it in AX, and the I will be mapped down to 720 and J will be mapped down to 721. Correct? If P1, the program P1 is this program that we have seen here, then I will be mapped down to 720 and J will be mapped down to 721. Now this program is executing for some time, then the operating system pulls it out and gives it to the next program. So what I have to do? I need to do nothing. I have to just change this 500, 720 and 900 to now 650, 1000 and 800. Now this will now start pointing on to this, So when I switch from one program to another program, I just need to change the values of these segment registers, and automatically the new program gets loaded, meaning the new program starts executing. So this move, switching from one program or task to another task is basically called as task switching from the operating system point of view. So the segmentation actually simplifies task switching. What I mean to switch from one task to another task, I have to basically change the values of the segment registers, right? So the segment registers actually simplify the notion of task switching, and that is one major facility which the segmentation provides to the operating system. Okay, let me say that. So we have seen two important advantages of segmentation. One from a compiler's perspective, wherein it can do a position independent compilation. The next is that we are seeing something from the operating system's perspective, wherein it can do a seamless or very easy task switching by just adjusting the value or changing the values of the code and data segment. We will look at one more advantage of having segmentation before we wind up this class. Now let us say this is the entire RAM. It goes up to say 1500. So let me just say that this part is occupied by the operating system in the memory. Now how much vacant space are there? The vacant spaces are that I have 150 locations here. I have 150 locations here. I have some, so let me say this ends at 600. So I have some 50 locations here. Let me say this ends at 700. I have 20 locations here. This, it's 785. So I have 15 locations here. 875, 25 locations. 990, say 10 locations. This is 1300, some 200 locations. So total amount of free locations I have would be 70 plus 85, 90, 110, 120. So totally 320 locations I have. Right. So in this whole memory of 1500 locations, I have 320 locations that are free. Now let us assume that the process P2 is asking for more memory. How can it ask for more memory? While it is executing, it can ask for extra memory by doing a malloc. We already described what a malloc is in the start of the class. So it is asking for some additional memory, say it is asking for some 250 bytes of memory, asking for 250 locations. I cannot basically allocate 250 locations though I have 320 locations free. Though I have 320 locations free, I cannot allocate 250 locations because I do not have contiguous amount of 250 locations. So what I need to do is to just move these values. For example, move this, copy this C2 segment. If I am able to copy this 1000 to 1300, if I am able to move it, if I am able to move all these locations closer to each other. For example, now I move C2 to come to 601. I move this up. I do move this up. Suppose I do that, then what I will get? I will get 520 locations free at this end. When I move all of these up so that all these gaps are filled, then I will now get 520 locations that are free, and I can now allocate 250 locations to that. Sorry, when I fill all these gaps, I will get 320 locations that are free, and I can give that 250 locations to the processor, right? So what it means, now your program, say your CS, now from 650 it is moving to 600. So when this moves to 600, now this will move to 650, and this now will, your D1 now moves to 700. So let us say your program actually moves from 650 to 600, 601 for example. So what does it mean? It means nothing. I have to just adjust this value of the code segment to 601. Similarly, your data segment would have moved some 120 locations before. So this 1000 would have moved to some 880. So I have to just move this to 880. So your data segment which was in 1000 now has moved to 880. Now where will your new I be? It will be at 880 and your new J will be at 881. Should I now go and change this program? No. Still this program will work correctly because I have made the necessary adjustment in the data register or the data segment register. So this is an advantage of segmentation. So when the operating system is unable to find large chunk of memory, large chunk of contiguous memory, the operating system basically tries and moves the program, it compacts the program so that it could find one larger chunk of memory. And when it does this compaction, the code that is already loaded and executing in the memory need not change. There is no change required for the code that is already loaded in the memory. We have to just go and change the values of the base values of these segment registers, and the programs will execute correctly. So this particular compaction which the operating system does, in the operating system jargon it's called garbage collection. You will learn about this in the operating system course that you may be taking in your next 2 semesters, one of those semesters, either in the 5th or the 6th semester. And why does garbage collection work? Your operating system book will not teach you. It works correctly because of the underlying hardware, because the underlying hardware supports segmentation. So to wind up today's class, we have introduced the notion of segmentation, and the 3 important things that you have to remember: facilities that are offered, the advantage that are offered by segmentation. One is the compiler can do a position independent compilation, operating system can do very quick task switching, the operating system can also do garbage collection, and all these 3 things are very important for you to realize effective CPU utilization, and this is basically enabled by segmentation. We will continue on segmentation in the next class. One doubt. Okay, there are no doubts. Have a good day.